who are you?
I'm Olle Torpman, a PhD in practical philosophy, and who are you?
I'm Daniel, and I'm studying environmental studies and risk management at Stockholm University.
Ethics is the study of norms and values, and norms, they tell us what's right and wrong to do, and values, they are what's good and bad. And these are relevant for all kinds of practical issues, such as what should we do about climate change, or what should I do with my life, and these sorts of issues. So when I started to study these practical ethical questions about the norms and values, I saw that they are very relevant to like urgent questions regarding what we as a society, or I as an individual, should do with respect to climate change. So that therefore I started to focus on climate ethics, which is a branch of applied ethics.
All right, so you identified some kind of knowledge gaps.
Yes, I did.
Right.
I mean, when I hear and see the debates in society regarding what we should do with respect to climate change, I could see that some of the reasons why people have a hard time agreeing on what to do or which goals to aim for is that they endorse different ideologies, or that they endorse different values or principles, and the ethics is needed in order to study these principles and values. And I think that in order to come to an agreement regarding what we should aim for, we need to discuss these things, and ethics can give us the tools that we need for such a discussion. Next to doing research and teaching, there is the task of also spreading the results of the research to outside of academia or outside of the university. Why do we have universities in the first place? Is it just to teach people something that they didn't know before? Of course it is, but why do we do that? Well, we want something out of it in society, and the more problems there are to deal with outside in society, the more important the third task becomes. And I also think that the philosophical and ethical aspects are so often left out of the discussion that they need to be brought in. Again, for the reason I mentioned before, that if we don't discuss these evaluative or normative aspects in the situation, which I think are the reasons why people tend to disagree so much about what we are allowed to do in order to reach the climate goal, for instance. It's like playing a football game without having decided on or come to an agreement on the rules for that football game. And ethics can provide these things, and I think we need to discuss these in society. How are we to divide the burdens of climate change? What principles are we going to follow when we are to make these distributions of costs and so on?
Like every politician wants everyone to always end inequalities and all that stuff. So everything is about everyone's well-being always within politics, but it's just a lot of different ways to reach that.
Yeah, exactly. And how when you have these goals like equality and justice and well-being, but then you see that we can't achieve all of it at the same time. Maybe in order to achieve more well-being in society, we have to decrease equality, or the other way around. And then what should we prioritize? And that's again an ethical question. Do you think that everyone agrees with your view that the environment is the most important resource, or that?
No, definitely not.
No.
I've talked to a guy who studied economics in his 5th year, so I thought that all right, this guy should know a lot about economics and how to do this whole thing sustainably. But his point of view was I want to get rich, and if I'm getting richer, I know that other people get poorer because I get my money from their work and so on. So he was just fully accepting this fact, and he was kind of selfish. And then again, what is selfish? He thought that this is just how our economic system works. I'm just trying to make my best within the system.
And that's also something that I've been very interested in, and I'm still that instead of like changing people's values and their if they're egoist or if they're like not at the moment caring too much about climate change, I was thinking that maybe I could just try and, for the sake of argument, accept their values, accept their views on morality and what's the right thing to do and so on, and try to figure out what kind of climate policies are compatible with these values and these principles that these people endorse. And I think that's also something that's really interesting. I mean, to tell or to show like an egoist person that, well, even from your point of view, or like a nationalist person, that even from your point of view, there are these reasons to fight climate change or to fight unsustainability. Because if we don't, then this will negatively affect you in a way that's incompatible with your own ethical egoism, so to speak.
I have the theory that humans are egoistic and always egoistic. No matter what they do, what they act, how they think, it's always about egoism.
I mean, I've mainly, I think, two things to say there. First of all, I don't think that humans are capable of acting egoistically only. Psychological studies have shown that it seems that we can actually make choices that are for the worse when it comes to our own well-being, but that helps others. You're always in the center of your own universe, so to speak, or when you act. One could still distinguish between people who are acting only for themselves or people who are acting for themselves, but a lot of other people. And again, now with these crises that we have regarding sustainability and climate change, I mean, to some extent, it's not even needed anymore to like try and attack egoism, because we have so strong egoistic reasons to fight these issues.
So could you tell me a bit more about your future studies and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, when I look at the climate problem, I can see, and this is also confirmed by sociologists who have studied this, that many of the people who tend to be against climate action, they adhere to a conservative morality. The main reason why this is the case is that many of the climate actions that have been proposed in the debates, they come from liberals, they come from socialists, they come from green environmentalists. And these proposals don't take into account or into consideration the values that can be found within the conservative ideology. So what I want to do is that instead of just fighting conservative representatives, is to take their ideology seriously, try and determine what are the values and principles within conservative ideology, and then apply them to the problem of climate change to see, okay, what climate policies would be recommended by conservatism if conservatism would have a say on this issue.
If they would like to talk about environmental questions in general.
Yeah,
right?
But I think that there is nothing intrinsically inconsistent, or what I mean by that is there is nothing, I mean, that excludes them from discussing these issues. But I understand why they don't want to do it if the formulations of the proposals don't take into account or don't take into consideration what they care about, like the national stability or sovereignty of the nation, and like the freedom of the individual, the value of life and the family, and so on. The first is that you can start discussing the very ideology, discussing the core principles of that ideology. What is it that's really valuable, and for whom should we care about this value, for instance? Or you can just, okay, I hear what you say, I don't share your values and your principles, but let's just take them for granted in this discussion. And then you try to elaborate on these values or on the basis of these values and try to, together with this person, see what kinds of sustainability measures or climate actions would be compatible with these principles and values of that person without judging that person's ideology. And then you could perhaps come to some agreement on something that you both could say yes to, even though you would do it on the basis of different ideologies. And I think that's a possibility when it comes to climate change too, and sustainability in general, that we could perhaps come to agreements regarding what we should do without having agreements on why we should do it.
But could we apply that whole thing on politics in general?
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't. What do you think?
Well, I think it would be hard. Like it feels like, however we are going to solve this climate issue, we are gonna ride over some people, because no one will, or like everyone will not agree to the measures being taken. For example, taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, it works because people are driving less and planning their driving a bit more, but also it becomes an economic issue for some people.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, we should take these things into account and try to solve them so that we don't like create new injustices just because we solve one of them, like the climate or environmental injustices. When I went to the dentist, she told me, oh, you need to do this and that twice every morning, twice every night, and after lunch, and you should do this and that. I know that that might be correct, but maybe I'm not motivated to do everything. Maybe I just don't do it because I don't care. And that's true when it comes to like ordinary people and climate change and other issues too, that there is one thing to settle on what's right to do, and there's another thing to motivate people to do it. And maybe philosophy can't help there.